This is Andrew, and welcome back to Madman Review. In this episode, I will be talking about some of the most widely used handgun calibers in history: the 9mm, the 40 Smith & Wesson, and the 45 Auto. To be more precise, which one of these has the most stopping power? The truth is that it's a lot more complicated than you think. When you look at handgun stopping power, you find a plethora of studies, experts, theories, and all that stuff that's supposed to give you conclusive evidence to put all these arguments to rest. However, there are statistical impossibilities we can observe. Some of that contradicts all those studies. There have been cases where murders were committed using a pellet rifle, and those who survived being turned into Swiss cheese from a variety of guns. They happened even though the studies say otherwise. So, join me on this journey, and we'll dive into each caliber and hopefully put some of the debates to rest. 45 Auto versus 9mm. One Juliet Hatcher, former technical editor at American Rifleman, based his relative stopping power study on a 1904 test, where Major Louis A. Lagarde and Captain John T. Thompson shot both living cows and human cadavers to determine which caliber was best for the soldiers. The result? The 45 Auto was twice as effective compared to the 9mm. This is probably the study they would bring up if you ever bring this up in conversation. However, the National Institute of Justice created the Relative Incapacitation Index somewhere between 1975 to 1985. It was a comprehensive study on a human generated using computer programs. They found that a 115-grain 9mm bullet was twice as effective compared to the 230-grain 45 Auto bullet. And so, those who swear by the 9mm have some ammo to beat back the 45 Auto fans. What about the 40 Smith & Wesson? The tragedy of the 1986 Miami shootout was an eye-opening experience for the Bureau. They soon established their own testing methods by using 10% ordnance gelatin and other intermediate barriers. They came out of that study was the belief that 12 inches of penetration were the minimum depth for the law enforcement, and also that the 45 Auto was twice as effective as the 9mm. Thanks to the FBI's protocol and their scoring system that defies basic math, they birthed the 40 Smith & Wesson in 1990. As you might have guessed, it did not go so well, and the FBI turned back to the 9mm after 25 years later. With this in mind, you would assume that the 9mm would be superior since it got an endorsement from the government. Right? The Strasbourg test. The test was based on, put it nicely, a real generous assumption that French alpine goats are basically humans, except with 4 legs. And so, in 1991, a privately funded group tested the destructive capability of a bullet on medium-sized animals. After going through 611 involuntary 4-legged participants later, it was concluded that stopping power ties closely to bullet velocity and expansion. In other words, bullets with high velocity and expand violently are the most effective. However, I should point out a couple of things about this experiment, which is also known as the French Alpine Goat Test. The original study was mostly unsourced, which really makes everything seem dubious at best. I would take the result of this study with a grain of salt. The 9mm hollow point performance. Naval Weapons Support Center also tested 10 different 9mm loads, looking for the best hollow point they can use. They measured terminal performance, reliability, and accuracy, which were some of the metrics you would expect them to look at. The unlucky participant of this test was not a 10% ordnance gelatin, but 20%. This was used thanks to the suggestion from the Wound Ballistics Lab at the Letterman Army Institute of Research. NWSC believed that anything above 12 inches of penetration could be fatal to bystanders, and so they concluded that Federal's 147-grain 9mm JHP was best for duty. Several years later, the Secret Service also conducted their own ammunition effectiveness study in secret. They used a block of 20% ordnance gelatin, and they measured the effect on the bullet's ability to dump its energy in the front 5.9 inches of penetration. Their logic was that the bullet would have more potential to do tissue damage if they can dump more energy after achieving penetration. With those assumptions and metrics in mind, they found that the best 9mm loads for the job would be a P 9mm 115-grain Jane HP. Unfortunately, that was not the answer they wanted because it was a 115-grain 9mm hollow point that failed the FBI in 1986, which prompted them to look for a better alternative in the first place. The police's investigation on stopping power. Maybe the police reports can weigh in on the whole debate. A book titled Handgun Stopping Power was written in 1991 by 2 police officers, Evan Marshall and Ed Sano. They compiled this book based on countless police reports, victim statements, autopsies, and photographs. Moreover, they test-fired hundreds of bullets into 10% ordnance gelatin. They came up with a mathematical formula that should allow one to predict the chance of a one-shot stop. At the time, it was a big deal. However, some still do not believe in this study, even though it is based on real-life accounts and countless test fires. 2 years down the line, and the Royal Mounted Police in Canada gave it a go. Their tests were similar to that of the FBI, minus the intermediate barriers. They also embedded some pig ribs into the gelatin to simulate being shot in the torso, which is where you generally shoot anyway. They found that certain 9mm and .40 Smith & Wesson loads offer similar or better terminal performance compared to their duty .38 special load. The study also did not receive much attention. The truth of the matter. When you look at all these reports, you realize that they do not agree with each other on the results. So there's no conclusive evidence to be found here. From all of the studies above, we know that even the very best experts on the field cannot give us the best data and never agree on anything. The moral of the story is that there is no simple answer to the question. It depends, or it's complicated, would be the answer. Disappointing? Yes, but this is the truth of the matter. Perhaps there isn't a cartridge that is definitely the best when it comes to stopping power. We all want to add scales and metrics to everything we do not fully comprehend so that we may understand it. The issue here is that shooting is something we can only evaluate after the fact, so it's not something that theories and numbers can predict reliably. I believe the most important factor here is the shooter themselves. The real answer lies with your skills, recoil tolerance, etc. Take the .357 Magnum, for example. It'd be a great stopping the load if you can handle the recoil and use it effectively, but it would be too much for a lot of people. What I can tell you right now is that if you're looking for a self-defense handgun, get the most powerful one that you can comfortably use and concealed carry. You want to be able to draw and shoot with speed and accuracy. After all, what good is a gun that you cannot use? When people question your choice, you can then pick a study, formula, or expert that supports your choice. And there you have it, folks. If you find this video helpful, make sure to give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Make sure to click that bell icon to be notified when a new episode comes out. And thank you for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode.